Welcome to the session, Publishing Professionally, Practical Advice from the Editors. You'll hear today from three individuals who oversee the various publications that are produced by AASA, the School Superintendents Association. The purpose of this session is to provide information and advice about contributing your work to these publications. My name is Jay Goldman, and I'll be talking about School Administrator, which is AASA's magazine.
Hi folks, my name is Ken Mitchell. I'm the editor of the AASA Journal of Scholarship and Practice. I'm also a professor, associate professor at Manhattanville College, Purchase, New York, and a retired school superintendent.
Thank you, Ken. And I'm Jimmy Minicello, Director of Communications and Public Relations with AASA, the School Superintendents Association. And I also manage the AASA Books program, and I'm excited to be here.
As editor of School Administrator magazine, I want to encourage you to consider contributing editorially to our readership, which consists primarily of school superintendents across the United States. My intention is to give you some insights into what we seek to publish in our magazine and how to go about submitting an article or column for our consideration. In general, School Administrator magazine seeks informative articles of practical value that address the significant issues confronting those in school system leadership. This slide shows you that there's quite an array of professional magazines serving educators in K-12 education. The story idea that you have in mind might be better suited for one of the other publications more so than our own magazine. The first of 8 suggestions from the editor about how to be a successful contributor to our magazine. Be sure that your proposed article fits the particular niche served by the publication that you are contacting with your idea or your article draft. We can always tell when authors haven't taken the time to make that determination before submitting their article. You want to work hard at opening your proposed article in an engaging way, perhaps with a distinctive facet of your subject, or maybe an engaging anecdote. Starting with something widely known already or with background information is a sure turnoff. We strive hard to avoid education jargon, which represents a whole different language than clear and concise English. Manuscripts that come to us full of education jargon tend to be the first that we reject. Be selective about what you are sharing. Narrow your focus, as you cannot tell us everything you know about a subject in a magazine-length article. Illustrate the principal points in your article with examples and perhaps relevant anecdotes. Be aware of the typical length of published articles in your targeted magazine. In our case, the longest articles tend to run about 1,500 or 1,600 words. So if you send us a 4,000 word manuscript, we probably won't spend a lot of time evaluating it for a short excerpt. As you may have learned from your middle school English teacher, the first draft should not be considered the final draft. That's certainly true at the way we work at our magazine. Our major articles in most months tend to fall under an umbrella theme. This shows you what we are hoping to address during the coming school year. The footnotes, too, are useful here. In our case, it says we tend to start editorial planning about 5 to 6 months ahead of the calendar. That means we're just about to start thinking about January. The footnotes also indicate that only a portion of each month's issue is tied directly to the editorial theme. Most magazines that accept outside contributions publish a set of author guidelines. Ours is rather detailed and can be found on our website. Many of the articles and columns that we publish tend to fall under one of these 5 broad categories. so it may be helpful to consider these before submitting. Please note that research articles are not among these categories, though we do publish articles that succinctly reference relevant research studies. The first category, personal experience. This is an example of a first-person article by someone who had spent much of his professional life working in a variety of superintendent positions. Snow day decision-making has been a recurrent topic that certainly captures the interest of superintendents. This one was written by someone who had to make a lot of these unpopular calls over the years. The second category is school district practices. Here's an example of a district initiative, a process for placing the most experienced educators in the schools with the greatest student needs. An article here about a rural school district that has created an effective way to raise the number of students who continue on to post-secondary schooling. The third category, guest commentaries. This is one such example, and another with a very relevant connection to the news of the day. Now, two examples from the fourth category. This is an article that we published that was generated from a conference presentation that someone on our magazine staff happened to hear. And this is a commentary that originated as a superintendent's blog posting. The last category is offbeat situations. We do like to occasionally publish lighter fare in our magazine. Our back page, Leadership Light, welcomes short, humorous anecdotes from anyone in education. And that's it for the School Administrator magazine portion of this presentation. Please get in touch with us about your story ideas. And now on to Ken Mitchell to talk about the Journal of Scholarship and Practice.
Thank you, Jay. The Journal of Scholarship and Practice was originally called The Professor many years ago. While it focused on material for higher ed, over the years it evolved into a publication that supports the needs of superintendents as well as higher ed and other leaders in the school district organization. We provide peer-reviewed, user-friendly, research-based literature with the goal of assisting leaders with their work to run systems, and also with the goal of helping higher ed faculty prepare future school leaders. The articles focus on the who, the what, the context of the organization, and we cap them typically at 4,500 words. And while I've already described the target audiences, there are others. For example, I used to use the journal articles with my school boards. The focus is on evidence-based literature, whether that is best practice, whether it's original research or dissertation research. Commentary, which is very common, needs to be research-based. Reviews of the literature are accepted, and book reviews. We do discourage submissions that focus only on personal reflections, and we also discourage doctoral dissertations that are sent in just as their doctoral dissertation format. This is for the practitioner, as well as the practitioner who works with a higher ed partner. We'd like to hear about how the practitioners are trying to solve problems of practice, for example, with action research. We'd like to hear how the practitioner is using work from the university level to deal with the challenges of implementation or innovation. This is about literature that helps leaders make system change. Retired superintendents, sitting superintendents, university faculty. We have principals, and we even have classroom teachers who are members of our editorial reviewers team. We have a circulation of 13,000. We publish quarterly, and you can access us at aasa.org. We accept about 20%, a little bit less than 20% of the submissions. And as I indicated earlier, this has evolved. It's an online publication. The page where you'll find information about publishing in our journal. Looks like this, simply jsp@asa.org. I'd like to show you some examples of our recent journals. For example, this is summer 2020. This is our most recent publication. It was just released on July 1st. The plan was to have an issue dedicated to the theme of time and how time is managed. In the last 3 months, as we've been dealing with the COVID pandemic, in the last couple of years, we've attempted to build themes throughout our issue. In this case, we were able to adapt quickly enough to address the current crisis. Our spring issue is about assessment. And as you can tell, we have some exceptional researcher authors, Tom Guskey, Giselle Martin-Neat, Audrey Amrine-Beardsley, one of the experts on value-added measurement. Our winter issue, for which we've received a number of requests about background information, even contacts with these authors, is about equity-focused leadership and has proven to be very current, especially in the midst of our national discussion of racism and income inequality. In the fall, we had an issue primarily on the superintendency, and we've had some of our frequent requests for certain articles related to the challenges of the superintendency. So summer 2019, the focus was on governance, and one of the articles I'll recommend is Good Governance and the Influence of the Superintendent. We think that this work could be valuable with all members of the leadership team, including school boards. Well, you see, we have a variety of interests, obviously leadership, curriculum and instruction. We do have an interest in seeing more work submitted around superintendents and market-driven reforms, and also about equity and access. The articles are submitted to me at kenneth.mitchell@mville.edu. They go through a preliminary review. That is the first stage. Then it is determined whether they will go into our blind review process, which brings us to the third stage of blind review. We have multiple reviewers, and because of a backlog, this can take anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks. We're always looking for reviewers. We want people with a doctorate, publication history, and we want people who have a strong background in design and methods, both quantitative, qualitative, mixed methods. We want people to have a statistical knowledge for their ability to assess the linkage between the data and the assertions made by the authors. And we are always looking for folks with a background in leadership and leadership research. Again, this is my address, and if you're interested, please send me a copy of your resume. Now I'll turn it over to Jimmy.
Thank you, Ken. One of my roles at AASA is to manage our books program. We work extensively with the book publishing company Rowman and Littlefield, and through this partnership, we co-publish with R&L approximately 4 to 6 books a year. These are authored by superintendents or those in educational leadership positions. My liaison with R&L is Tom Corner, the Vice President and Senior Executive Director. AASA and R&L co-publish books that are on display on the AASA website, the R&L website, and they would also be available for sale each year at the AASA National Conference on Education. Are you thinking of writing a book covering the most critical issues in school system leadership? Do you think your work would be appealing to superintendents and other school district leaders? Now, if the answer to both of those questions is yes, I would invite you to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to speak with you about your work and follow up on any ideas you might have. Then be happy to put you in touch with Tom so he can specifically go over the major themes of what your book would entail. If you were to secure a contract with Rowman and Littlefield, and AASA has agreed to consider serving as a co-publisher. Your manuscript would then come to me. I would disseminate it to a team of peer reviewers, which consists of superintendents from across the country. Each would submit an extensive review. I would then forward the suggested revisions to Tom, who would then work with you to improve your work. Sometimes we may reject it. All of our contact information is right there on the screen. We encourage all of you, if you would like to have further conversation with either one of us, please feel free to contact us. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, folks.